I never meant to fall for him. It started on a rainy Thursday in Dyer, Indiana, a town most people blink through on their way to somewhere else. I was shelving records at Limestone Spin, the kind of half-forgotten vinyl shop that smelled like old leather jackets and pine wood. That's when Ezra stepped in. He wasn't the kind of man you forget. Tall, lean, copper-toned skin like burnt honey, with eyes that carried the weight of too many secrets. He moved with the self-assurance of someone who had been watched his whole life and liked it. He introduced himself with a soft voice, almost hesitant, like he was afraid saying his name too loud would make it real. "Ezra Langston," he said, extending a hand. "You don't have anything by Street Auburn Harper, do you?" Now, before we dive deeper into this dangerous, messy, beautiful tangle of hearts, let me say this. If you're watching this, hit that like button. Share this story with someone who's ever been torn between duty and desire. Subscribe to the channel, right now, so you don't miss the chapters to come. Drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. This story, it might just live somewhere inside you too, and it'll hurt a little if you walk away without showing some love. Back to Ezra. He wasn't just engaged, he was practically married. I'd seen the ring on his finger when he reached across the counter. But it wasn't on his hand. It was hers, woven onto the chain around his neck. I found out later her name was Magnolia Wren. Beautiful, rich, the kind of Southern belle who hosted charity brunches and wore heels to the farmer's market. Her parents owned half of Tennessee, and Ezra was a prize. But here's the twist. Ezra looked at me like no one ever had. Not in Dyer. Not in all of Indiana. Like I was dangerous and necessary all at once. He came back every Thursday. First it was about the records, then it wasn't. It became about me. We talked. Then we talked longer. One night, he waited till the store closed. We sat on the creaky floor with a bottle of off-brand whiskey, listening to bootleg jazz and sharing the kind of truths that don't survive daylight. And somewhere between the silence and the storm outside, I reached out, just to touch his wrist. It was nothing and everything. He didn't pull away. "I shouldn't be here," he whispered. But he didn't move. We kissed that night. Slow, like we had centuries left. His mouth tasted like regret and clove gum. His hand shook as he held my face. We didn't undress. Not yet. But we crossed a line. I could feel it under my skin for days. He didn't show up the next Thursday. Or the one after. Then one night, my door buzzed at 2:17 a.m. Rain hammered the rooftop like fists of glass. I opened the door, and there he was, dripping wet, eyes bloodshot, jacket barely hanging on his shoulders. "She called off the wedding," he said, voice cracking like lightning. "Because I told her about you." I didn't speak. I just pulled him inside. And that night, we burned. The door clicked shut behind him. He stood there dripping. His clothes clung to his body, outlining every muscle, every shiver. The silence stretched between us, heavy, electric, until I reached forward, brushing wet hair out of his face. My thumb caught against his cheek, and I felt it. The tear. It wasn't rain. "I'm not good at this," he murmured. "Then don't be good," I said, my voice quieter than I meant it to be. "Just be real." And something inside him broke open. He pressed his forehead to mine. His breath was ragged. Every part of him vibrated with a held-in ache. I didn't rush. I didn't speak. I just held him. For a long time, we stayed like that. In the dim hallway, shadows swaying on the wall from the porch light, two men caught in the middle of a decision neither of us could take back. "I told her," he whispered again, "because I couldn't pretend anymore. Not after the way you kissed me. Not after how it made me feel like myself." I slid my fingers down his arm, slowly, until I reached his hand, interlaced my fingers with his, led him into the living room. The air smelled of petrichor and old wood polish. The only light came from the yellow lamp beside the record player, casting soft gold across the room. I helped him out of his coat, then his shirt. My hands were gentle, never assuming. Every inch of skin I revealed came with a look, an unspoken question. And Ezra, he answered in exhales and half-closed eyes. His body was art, broad shoulders tapering to a lean waist, a constellation of freckles trailing along his collarbone. He watched me as I peeled off his soaked t-shirt, as if memorizing how it felt to be seen. When I leaned in, my lips brushed the base of his throat first. Just there, he let out a sound, half sigh, half surrender. And that's when I knew he wanted this as much as I did. Maybe more. He undressed me next, slowly, as if learning a language he'd always feared to speak aloud. Our mouths met again, hotter now, desperate. My fingers dug into his back as he pulled me close, skin against skin. I kissed along the line of his jaw, the curve of his neck down to his chest. I listened to his breath catch. I followed the rhythm of his heartbeat like a map, letting it guide me. We made it to the bedroom, barely. He pushed me back onto the sheets, crawled over me with a hunger that trembled beneath restraint. Our eyes locked, and for the first time, I saw Ezra without fear. Just a man who had finally stepped into the truth of what he wanted. I've never been with a man like this, he admitted. Not fully. I reached up, cupping his face. Then let me show you what love feels like. Not shame, not secrecy, just us. He nodded. And when we came together, it wasn't rushed. It was reverent. Every kiss, every touch, every whispered gasp. It felt like poetry written on skin. He moved over me with a rhythm that was unsure at first, but honest. And that honesty, raw or rare, made it perfect. I guided him gently, speaking through my body. And when we found that perfect rhythm, that synchronicity of breath and heartbeat and desire, we didn't stop. He cried when he came. So did I. But not because of the pleasure, though that was there in overwhelming waves. It was the weight of every wall crashing down, every lie undone, every hiding place emptied. Afterward, we lay in silence. Our legs tangled, his head on my chest. Outside, the rain softened to a drizzle, as if even the sky had been holding its breath. His fingers traced lazy circles on my stomach. What now? He asked. I kissed the top of his head. Now we breathe. We let it be real. We don't run. He nodded, lips grazing my skin. I don't want to run anymore. And in that moment, just two men, bare and messy and real beneath cotton sheets, I believed him. I didn't care about Magnolia Wren. I didn't care about Tennessee or family reputations or what the world would say. All I cared about was the man lying beside me, who had finally stopped pretending. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. When I woke, the sun had just begun to push light through the cracks in the blinds. It fell in soft slants across the bed, highlighting the curve of Ezra's spine, the freckle beneath his shoulder blade, the way his dark lashes rested like feathers against his skin. He was still asleep, one arm draped over my waist like it belonged there, like he wasn't someone else's almost husband, like he hadn't just burned down the neat little life he'd built on paper for the mess of me. I didn't move. I couldn't. Not because of the weight of his body, but because of the weight of everything else. The silence in the room wasn't heavy, but sacred. And I wasn't ready to break it. But Ezra stirred. And when his eyes opened, those deep, wild eyes that had once scanned my face like I was a question he shouldn't ask, I saw something new in them. Peace. He stretched, muscles shifting under skin like the slow roll of thunder, and blinked at me with a sleepy smile. Hey, I whispered back. He propped himself on his elbow and looked down at me. His fingers traced a lazy pattern along my jaw, the way you might outline a country you finally plan to visit. I meant what I said last night, he murmured. Which part? All of it. His voice dipped. That I told her. That I want this. That I'm done lying. I swallowed hard. How did she take it? Ezra sighed, eyes drifting to the ceiling. Like a wren. Calm. Dignified. She said she always knew something in me wasn't reachable. She thought it was just fear. Turns out it was you. That hit deeper than it should have. You sure you're not just overwhelmed? I mean, last night was the only honest thing I've done in years, he interrupted. You think I don't know what this looks like? I walked away from a name, a future, comfort. But I'd do it again. I'm doing it again. Right now. I exhaled. Ezra, I don't want to be the reason your whole life falls apart. He leaned down and kissed me, slow, like he needed the taste of me to make the sentence make sense. You're not the reason it fell apart, he whispered against my lips. You're the reason I finally had the courage to let it go. His words settled into me like honey, thick and warm and impossible to ignore. Still, I had questions. Are we together now? Or was last night just about release? Ezra climbed back on top of me, straddling my hips with those dancer's thighs, his hands resting on my chest. I don't sleep next to people unless they mean something, he said. Is that a yes? He smiled. It's a hell yes. We made love again. But this time it wasn't frenzied. It was slow, luxurious, a sunrise kind of intimacy. He kissed every inch of me like he was thanking it, worshiping it. His mouth moved over my skin with reverence, his hands firm but gentle, learning the map of me like it was holy. I whispered his name when I came. He whispered mine when he followed. And when it was over, we stayed connected, breathing in sync, two bodies finally at home. Later, wrapped in the bedsheet, we sat on the back porch. Ezra had one arm around my shoulders, and I had my coffee in hand, his scent still clinging to my skin. The town stirred around us. Distant lawnmowers, a barking dog, a mother yelling something about backpacks. Life went on, but for once, so did we. So what now? I asked, careful not to make it sound like a demand. Ezra leaned in, kissed the corner of my mouth. Now, I go tell my father. I blinked. Your father? As in Randolph Langston, CEO of the Tennessee Agritech Board. The same. He already hates that I paint for a living. He'll really love this. Do you have to? I do. If I want to live with myself. Ezra squeezed my hand. And if I want to live with you. I felt something crack open in my chest. Something I hadn't dare name before. Hope. Ezra didn't flinch as he stood in front of the massive brass elevator doors at the Langston Estate Tower in downtown Nashville. His knuckles were white, though. That was how I knew he was nervous. We hadn't spoken much during the drive down from Dyer. He held my hand, sure, but his jaw was tight, his eyes distant. Every time I squeezed his fingers, he squeezed back, like a silent vow. Like, I'm still here. Like, no matter what happens upstairs, you're real and I'm not letting go. Are you ready? I asked, as the elevator dinged and opened its jaws. Ezra didn't look at me. He stepped in. No, but I'm going. The 36th floor was all black marble and still air. The kind of silence that comes from generational money. Money old enough to believe it has earned the right not to apologize. Ezra led us through double mahogany doors into a private office, so wide it could have fit a church sanctuary. His father sat behind a desk the size of a small island. Randolph Langston was a man carved from bone and salt. Hard edges, hard truths, hard hands. His silver hair was combed to military precision. His suit looked like it cost more than my entire apartment lease. When his eyes lifted from his tablet and saw me, they narrowed. Ezra, he said coolly, is this a new assistant or a statement? Ezra didn't wait. This is Silas. He's not my assistant. He's the man I'm seeing. That moment, the silence that followed, was the kind of silence that could break stone. Randolph stood slowly, like something dangerous being uncoiled. Magnolia called. He said, voice like metal dragging against gravel. Said you called off the engagement. I told her she was being hysterical. I told her my son wasn't that foolish. Ezra stepped forward. Then I guess I'm about to confirm all your worst fears. Randolph's face barely twitched. You'd give up the Wren Alliance, the Foundation merger, your board seat for this. He gestured toward me with two fingers, like I was some passing flu. I opened my mouth, but Ezra beat me to it. Don't talk about him like he's nothing. He's not a prop in your dynasty. He's the reason I can sleep at night. Randolph jaw locked. You're not gay. I'm not labeled. Ezra shot back. But I love him, and I won't bury that love in your expectations anymore. You don't know what love is, his father said, ice in every syllable. You only know rebellion. Ezra took a slow breath. I could see his hands tremble, but his voice never wavered. Maybe, but if rebellion tastes like him, smells like him, touches like him, I'll keep rebelling. That hit me deep. Randolph looked at me with full, razor-edged contempt. Do you know what you're doing to him? I'm not doing anything to him, I replied calmly. I'm with him. There's a difference. Randolph scoffed. You'll be out of the will. Ezra smirked bitterly. Good. Maybe you can finally adopt the son you actually want. And with that, he turned, took my hand, walked us out. He didn't look back. We didn't speak until we were back in the car, the skyline turning gold in the windshield. Ezra let out a long breath. Well, that went about how I expected. Are you okay? No, he said, but I'm free. I nodded, tracing a finger along his forearm. So what now? He looked at me. There was something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Not just love. Certainty. I didn't answer. I kissed him instead. Hard. Hungry. Because after all the fire, all the resistance, all the heartbreak, it still came down to one thing. Him. Me. Us. The cottage looked like something out of a forgotten postcard. All cedarwood and pale green trim, tucked behind a row of swaying pines on the edge of Lake Monroe. The kind of place where time slows, where silence is golden, not hollow, where two men like us could carve a new story out of the wreckage of the ones we'd left behind. Ezra parked the car and turned the ignition off. No words. He just sat there, fingers resting lightly on the steering wheel, staring out at the lake like it might swallow his past if he looked long enough. I reached across and placed my hand over his. He looked at me, those warm, stormy eyes, and smiled. Not the smile he used when pretending to be okay, but the kind that said, I'm really here now. We stepped out into the soft dusk, carrying nothing but 2 duffel bags, a bottle of wine, and the kind of tension that's quiet only until it erupts. The inside of the cottage smelled like fresh pine and lemon oil. Simple, open, honest. Like us. There were boxes by the fireplace marked studio supplies and vinyl. Ezra's doing, no doubt. The couch was wide enough for 2 to sink into and never leave. The bed, king-sized with crumpled white sheets, was already calling. But it wasn't about the furniture. It was about the air. How light it felt. How different we felt in it. He turned to me and said, let's not wait. And then he kissed me. Harder than before. Not the delicate, unsure kind of kiss from back in Dyer, or the mournful release of that first night in my bed. No, this was a kiss made of choice, of claiming, of now. His hands went to my waist, and mine curled around the back of his neck as our mouths found each other over and over. We stumbled through the cottage like drunk poets, laughing between kisses, until we hit the bedroom door. Ezra pushed it open, and we fell into the space that would become ours. He undressed me like he was learning me again, even though he already knew the map of my skin. Every button undone was a question. Still mine? And every nod, every exhale was my answer. Yes, yes, always. When I peeled his shirt away, I saw him properly for the first time in the light. The line of his clavicle, the sun-kissed skin, the tattoos I hadn't noticed before, a hawk on his ribcage, a compass above his heart. Fitting. He'd always been both wild and searching. I kissed him there, right above the compass, right where I wanted to live. He groaned, low and needy. God, Silas. And then we stopped talking. He guided me to the bed, eyes locked with mine the whole time. Crawled over me like a man who knew what worship really meant. Our bodies fit like they'd been carved for each other. My legs curled around his hips, his hands buried in my hair, his mouth all over me, my neck, my jaw, my chest, my stomach. I gasped when his tongue found the edge of me, teased, then retreated. He smirked. What? He asked, breathless. Don't tease unless you plan to beg later. I shot back. Ezra chuckled, then sank lower, wrapping his mouth around me in a way that made my back arch. My fingers clutched the sheets. His rhythm was steady, slow, intentional. He wasn't rushing. He was tasting, learning, loving. And I let him. Because love doesn't always speak in words. Sometimes it's in the way a man takes his time. When I couldn't take it anymore, I pulled him back up, kissed him deeply, and flipped us, straddling him in one smooth motion. His breath caught, eyes wide with want. "You want it slow?" I whispered. He nodded. "Then lie back, Ezra. Let me take care of you." And I did. Every inch, every sigh, every whispered plea. I rode him like it meant something because it did. His fingers bruised my hips. His voice broke against my neck. His eyes never once looked away. We came together like a promise fulfilled. And when it was over, I collapsed on his chest, both of us panting, sweaty, trembling. He wrapped his arms around me and kissed the top of my head. There were no lies here, no guilt, just the rhythm of our breath, just a feeling of finally being where we were supposed to be. "I love you," he whispered. I kissed his throat. I know. Outside, the lake whispered against the shore. Inside, two men held each other in the home they had chosen together. And for once, that was enough. It started with a phone call. 3 days after we moved into the cottage. The kind of morning that makes you believe in God again. Sunlight spilling across Ezra's bare shoulders. Coffee brewing in the kitchen. My hand on his thigh under the breakfast table. His phone lit up. "Dad." Ezra stared at it, chest rising slower than usual. He didn't move. Didn't blink. "Don't answer," I whispered. He looked at me, then at the screen, then answered. "Hello." Silence. Then a voice like oil on cold water. "I hope you enjoyed your little honeymoon, Ezra. Because it's over." Ezra stiffened. I slid my fingers between his under the table, anchoring him. "I'm not coming back," he said. "You don't need to. But the Langston Gallery opening on Friday? You're not on the list anymore. Neither is your work. Your name's being replaced by someone with a future." Ezra flinched like he'd been slapped. "That's my show," he breathed. Randolph said. "Choices have consequences." Then the line went dead. Ezra sat in silence. The phone slipped from his fingers and landed on the floor with a soft thud. His lips barely moved. That gallery was my dream. I know. He funded it. He said he'd let me curate and debut in my own right. All those years of painting, building a portfolio, and just like that, he stopped, then stood, walked to the window. The light haloed him like something divine, but he looked far from it. He looked broken. I came up behind him, wrapped my arms around his waist. "Then let him take his gallery," I said quietly. "We'll make our own." Ezra turned in my arms, forehead pressed to mine. "You always do that." "What?" "Make hope sound like a real thing." "Because it is." And for the rest of the day, we painted. We cleared out the sunroom and turned it into our studio. We worked shirtless, barefoot, smudged with oils and acrylics. We blasted old soul records. We kissed between brushstrokes. We laughed. We cried. That night, we took a shower together. Not for lust, but for love. He leaned his forehead against mine under the warm stream and whispered, "I was so afraid to lose everything. And now that I have, I've never felt more alive." I smiled. "That's because you didn't lose everything. You found you." And then he kissed me, slow and wet, water dripping from our mouths, hands exploring again not out of hunger, but reverence. Our bodies knew each other now, but that didn't dull the ache. If anything, it made the connection deeper. We made love there against the cool tile wall, our moans swallowed by steam and soft jazz playing faintly from the speaker in the other room. There was no rush, just the pulse of skin on skin, the glide of fingers and lips and thighs. I held his face when he came, and he cried when I whispered. The next day, things changed. Ezra's old manager posted something cryptic on Instagram. "When talented boys fall for pretty distractions, their legacy burns. Let's hope he wakes up soon." The comments flooded in, some defending Ezra. Most didn't. The press caught on. A few whispers on art blogs. The golden boy gone rogue. Langston Eyre leaves bride for man. Photos surfaced, blurry ones of us at the cottage porch, shirtless, arms tangled. Ezra read every headline, then turned off his phone. "I don't care," he said, eyes blazing. "Let the world come." I nodded. We'll be here. Painting. Loving. Living. We called it the unframed exhibit. No venue. No sponsors. Just raw work. Hours. Hanging from rusted nails and strings of wire across an abandoned train station in Bloomington. Sunlight flooded through broken windows and cracked skylights. The scent of dust and fresh paint danced through the air. We hung Ezra's pieces, furious abstracts, aching portraits, a triptych of a man falling in love through slow, exquisite ruin. And my photographs, candid shots of Ezra painting shirtless, laughing, vulnerable, undone. They weren't polished, but they were true. No one thought anyone would come. But the internet has a way of turning scandal into curiosity, and curiosity into a crowd. They came. At first a few strangers, then influencers, then art critics in mismatched suits pretending not to be impressed. Then came the press, their cameras flashing as Ezra stood beneath his work in worn boots and a paint-stained t-shirt, holding my hand like it was the only thing he trusted. No speeches, no explanations, just truth on walls. And when the last piece was revealed, a massive, aching canvas of two male figures entwined in shadow and moonlight, every muscle coiled in ecstasy and grief, the room went quiet. It was called Inheritance. He had painted it weeks ago, while I was asleep, curled naked in our bed. Now it stood like a monument to everything we were no longer hiding. Applause followed. Then hands. Then questions. Are you together? Yes. Do you regret any of it? Not a damn thing. We stayed until dusk, until the sky outside turned bruised pink. We held each other beside his favorite canvas, heads resting together like prayer. You saved me, Ezra whispered into my neck. No, I replied. You just finally let yourself be found. That night, back in the cottage with the scent of paint and pine still clinging to us, we fell into bed without speaking. The kind of silence that's rich, not empty. Ezra moved over me with that slow, unhurried grace he'd come to master, like we had all the time in the world. And we did. He kissed every inch of me like the body beneath him was holy scripture. I touched him like he was my only language. There was nothing frantic, nothing shameful, just flesh meeting flesh, heart meeting heart. And when he slid into me, our eyes locked, not with hunger, but with knowing. We moved together with purpose. Every thrust, every moan, every breath was a declaration. We are still here. We're not broken. We are whole, even when the world says otherwise. His forehead pressed against mine. I love you, Silas. I wrapped my legs around his waist and whispered, then don't stop. Not tonight. Not ever. He didn't. We came like a storm, loud, gasping, reverent. Afterwards, tangled in sheets that smelled like sweat and home, he held me so tightly I could feel his heartbeat in my spine. And I knew, we weren't just surviving anymore. We were living. If this story touched you, made you feel something, made you pause, like this video, share it with someone who's ever had to choose between fear and freedom. Subscribe so you don't miss stories that matter. Leave a comment. Tell us where you're watching from. What line hit you deepest? Your love fuels stories like this. And trust me, you'd feel bad leaving without saying something back. Until next time, stay soft, stay bold, stay you.